Don is a research scientist at the Mount Desert Island Biological Laboratory, a biomedical research facility near Bar Harbor, Maine. Don and his colleagues are studying skates and other marine vertebrates to find out how they regrow their fins. So they carefully amputate their fins and then study the role genes play in regenerating them.
So once we understand, we can compare and contrast how all these different groups accomplish this feat, and then we can then apply that knowledge to higher vertebrates like humans and mice.
Salamanders also regrow their limbs. Scientists have been studying how they regenerate their limbs for decades, and they understand how tissues interact with each other during this process. But the real challenge is to understand what's happening at the molecular level.
So right now we're trying to figure out what genes drive this process, and then once we understand that, we can understand why humans fail to regenerate their limbs, and then hopefully through genetic trickery restore that ability.
Recently, a symposium at Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C. focused on what is called regenerative medicine. Dr. Roy Aaron, director of the Center for Restorative and Regenerative Medicine at Brown University, was one of the speakers. He says amphibians, such as the Mexican salamander, can regenerate entire limbs, but no mammal is currently capable of that.
Mammals form a little mass called the blastema, and then it scars and quiets down and doesn't grow.
Humans have the ability to accept certain transplanted organs, such as the liver or skin. But accepting grafted tissue is not as complex as growing a limb. Major General George Waitman of the Institute for Regenerative Rehabilitation at Wake Forest University says limb regeneration is complex.
If you think about it, there's bone marrow inside the bone, there's cartilage, there's tendon, there's blood vessels, there's nerves, there's muscles, there's skin, and how do you get them all not only to grow together and to recognize each other in the same environment, but how to function, quite frankly, as a limb.
Once scientists figure it out, one issue is whether regeneration will be carried out in a lab or on the amputee's limb.
So the question is whether we'll be able to grow a limb and then put it in a bioreactor and then transplant it on a person. That's one strategy. Another strategy would be basically to put, if you will, a magic goop or, on the end of an amputee that recognizes where it is and what the needs are to generate that limb.
Waitman says scientists will first try to regrow fingers before they attempt a limb.
You've probably seen the pictures of growing the end of a fingertip back. We can do that now, but much past a centimeter, things just stop.
Brown University's Roy Aaron believes it will be several lifetimes before limb regeneration becomes a reality. Research scientist Randy Don is more optimistic.
I think a reasonable goal is to understand some of the underlying molecular basis in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think it'll be a fairly rapid transition then to testing these ideas in mice and chickens, which are closely related to humans. And hopefully we can begin testing this on humans, certainly well within our lifetimes.
For many scientists, human regeneration is not a question of if, but when. Julie Tabo, VOA News, Washington.